now I have all my pieces sewn on, and this is what I'm talking about as far as making sure that your two end pieces are similar, because when this gets sewn together, let's see if I can kind of create what it'll kind of look like on the side. You'll have the same pieces here as you do on the other side. So, you know, you could make the opposite sides the same, but when you get this finished, it looks like a big eye, you know? So just have one side match and the other, or if you're gonna do it, just make them all match, and then you won't have that issue. But I'm just gonna give it a quick little run over with my iron, and then our next step is to turn it around and sew against that sew line that we did to tack down the liner to the stabilizer. But what I went ahead and did was, when I finished doing these sides, I remember when I had sewed this edge, I just took it out the same way. I just kind of folded down this piece so I knew where I needed to go, and just sewed a straight line there. If you are going to just do these bags with no additional liner or batting in them, you could potentially, I keep saying potentially, but you could cut this down at this point and then turn around and sew it. But by tacking this edge down over here, I know now this is all tacked down. So now all I have to really do is just make sure these edges don't come up. So I will stick a small pin in those corners on the opposite side here, up in the corner, so I know. Actually, let me do it up here, that corner is pinned down. Same thing over here and on the opposite direction, because now all I have to do is come in and sew this and then turn around and do the other side, because the tops are already tacked down. Wasn't able to grab that. Just turn it and do the same thing with this over here. If I have the first one of these I followed the directions, turned it over, and I didn't tack down the piece, and it was like meh. It was sewed over. Oh, that drove me nuts, because then I had to rip it out. I don't like ripping. I don't think anybody likes ripping. Okay, so let me take it, we'll take it back over to the sewing machine. I'll show you what we need to do to finish this up to get the top finished. Okay, so now all we're gonna do is just follow that seam that we already laid down to tack the liner down. That's all we're gonna do. I'm just gonna make sure that I lift up to make sure that my fabric does not get caught. So that it doesn't get puckered. Okay, so this one I think is good. I just want to make sure that we catch all the fabric underneath it. All right, and then I'm just going to turn it, and then I just do the rest of it. And then I'll come back and show you what we... Okay, I had everything tacked down. I will show you on the next one, but I think that was probably the reason why I felt like it was shifting a little bit when I was doing it, because it wasn't tacked down. So make sure, I'm going to show you how to do that on the next one, but make sure you do that before you start any of them. So make sure you watch the videos all the way through. But we do make mistakes. Luckily it was fixable. So, but this is what this one, get my iron moved out of the way a little bit, what this one is going to look like. And then you guys seen the other one, so we're going to get started on the blue and white one next, and that one is an angled one. That one is just, it's really simple. It's the same process as this. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do that and just kind of get it started, and then I'll show you how the end pieces go, because they're pretty big pieces, and so you'll want to make sure you tack those down. So all right, so let me go ahead and get the other one over here on the ironing board, get it attached so I can show you how to tack it down. Okay, now that you guys have seen kind of how it goes together with the numbers 1, 2, 3, this one is just angled, but if you do notice on this, it does come all the way across here. You're going to sew that piece and this piece. You're not going to skip over, you're going to sew it down, but your placement line is already sewed. So in the original instructions, it does tell you to perhaps use a coordinating or a different a contrast color to the white so that you can see that line on the other side. But it'll all come out in the end. I'll show you what we need to do. So this is just the same as before. We're just going to align our first piece. I did use fat quarters for this and found it did say you could use half yard. So I used 2 fat quarters, and then I cut my piece. I doubled, I cut 2 strips and then sewed them together, kind of like a piece of binding, so that I would have one big long strip here. And I'm okay with that. All right, so let's get this aligned up in here. All right. And there we go. And then we're going to take our number 2 piece and place it over the top with our right sides together. Get it here. It's setting off to the side so I don't knock them over. All right, so because that seam is there, I'm going to try and line it up so that my seams kind of match a little bit. I think it'll be a little more aesthetic. So let me kind of turn it so I can lay it flat here and align those pieces together on the edges. Get those lined up, and then I can turn it again and realign it to the blue alignment line, because remember, this is an alignment, it's not a sew line. And I am taking that fabric just a little bit. It is cut a little bit longer. It's intended to do that, so it comes off the edge a little bit, so you can pick it up on your next for that long piece up there. You'll be able to pick up that fabric under there, just in case, you know, you get some stretching or your seams come apart. Oh, hopefully that doesn't happen. You know, you've got a seam underneath, or your seam allowance underneath. So okay, but it is possible to use fat quarters for this one, for the angled. It does tell you to for, you know, a half yard. But I just used 2 fat quarters, which essentially is a half yard of fabric. I just had to stitch them together. All right. And we just continue doing the same thing all the way up and down. This one goes, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a lot of turning that you will have to do on this. And once this gets wide enough that I can run my iron comfortably without touching any of this stabilizer, I will run it under the iron at that point. So you just follow those instructions. Just keep piecing them like we did on the first one. They're just set in a different direction. That's all it is. So let me go ahead and get this pieced, and I'll come back and show you. Actually, let me do number 3 real quick, because it does sew up this seam, and I just kind of want to show you what it's going to do. Because you'll be able to sew that down, because when you, okay, so I want that to align there. And I think it's going to be a little too short there, so it's okay. It's not going to align perfect, but whatever. It's my bag. If I was making these for clients, I would definitely use a full half, so I wouldn't have any seams in it. But I needed to use up some of my stash. It's getting a little out of control. That's never a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's never really a good thing when you start losing space because your stash is so big. So there's things I need to get done, so I just need to get some projects finished. All right, let's see if we can. We had to turn it, and then I want that to line up there to that blue line. All right, and then just stitch my 1/4 inch. I'm just gonna make sure I adjust as I go. Everything's laying flat. And if you find that it feels like your dog feeds underneath, you know, your feed dogs, whatever you want to call them. I think they're your dog feeds. They're what picks up and moves the fabric underneath is struggling. You can put a walking foot on. My bobbin's getting kind of close to the end. So I'm going to need to string a new bobbin anyway. But do you see how this piece here is angled? And that would be where you would, you know, cut. But we've tacked it, we've sewn it down. So on the back side, it's already marked. And so when we fold this over and we do at the very end and we sew over again, it will sew it down. So it's getting thick enough now that I could probably run the iron over it. I just have to be really careful. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to wind me a new bobbin. I'm going to iron this flat and finish out these pieces, and I'll come back and show you what we need to do for the corner pieces here and here, because they are much bigger. Okay, so we are down to our last 2 pieces. I went ahead and put this one 20 and 21 on, which kind of attached all those pieces going diagonal together. And then now we've got the big triangle pieces to put on here. And this, I think, might be... This one was really simple compared to the other ones. I mean, I really thought this one might be a little bit more difficult because it's on an angle. It was a little trying to get the fabric to manage the fabric, but came out really good, I think, anyway. And we're just sewing along that line, or against that line, scant quarter inch. I'm going to keep it as smooth as possible. And of course, these corner pieces, once we flip them up and iron them down, I'm going to have to pin them in place so that when we go over the back side, it attaches down. Haha. So here's our piece. And once we iron it out, it'll lay out smooth there, and we'll pin it and, oops, sorry guys, sew it down. So let's get this side flipped up a little bit so it's a little more manageable. And attach our last piece. I like to measure to make sure I'm got enough on there. Okay. And then away we go. Last piece. Because it's gotten stiff, it becomes a little bit hard to manage, so I'm just slow down and re-smooth everything as I go. Alright, so let's go back over to the ironing board and we'll iron all this out. We'll do some pin down, and then see, like this piece here is a little off, and I'm hoping to do a little iron out. Might actually, I may have to pull that piece off. I don't know. Let's iron it and see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna iron this out a little bit, and hopefully it's off a little, but not much. It could have been what I did when I cut it, but I'm pretty sure I measured these because it had you cut one big piece and then cut down the middle, and it's off a little bit, and I don't want to pull it. Okay, I think it'll be all right. I mean, I'll just have to sew out over there, and those are seams anyway, so it's all going to be hidden in there. I think it'll be all right. We shall see, we shall see. If not, see, this piece came out pretty good. Trying to stay away from that stabilizer. All right, so let's give it iron across the whole thing here. And then I'm gonna take and pin down those edges. Let me grab my pins. I just don't like pinning it from this end. I really gotta tell you, I don't. Because, wow. Pin it way out there. Just make sure these pieces don't get caught up under there. That would really stink. All right, let's see. I don't know why that's, the other piece is good and this piece is so crooked. I don't know. I don't know, but I think it'll be all right. I've done enough of these little bags that you realize you're going to have like a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so it'll catch it in there. It shouldn't show up in there. Should be all good. All right, I think that'll be okay. Let me pin this down. There, and I think that one will be all right. Yeah, I like these colors. I do. Hold that down. See, I detest pins because of that. They need to develop non-stick pins. I know, they're called clips. But sometimes you just can't get a clip to, and it's not gonna work. Alright. I need to pin this one down inside here. And so now what we're gonna do, so now let me show you guys what it looks like. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it to the other side, and then we are going to sew all of this around that edge we sewed to begin with, to tack the lining to the stabilizer. So now we're gonna go back over it so that it tacks all this fabric down. Okay guys, this piece that was short is bothering me, only because it's not just a small fraction, it's about 1/4 inch. So what I've done is I went in and I cut a piece just about the length of the side here, because as you can see, it it kind of weaves in. I don't know why. So I went ahead and cut a piece that was 1 inch, and I'm just gonna paper piece it right back and then fold it over. I mean, it's going to be the seam, the inside the seam, the edge, but it's still bugging me. So this is how you can simply fix that. And then I'm just gonna iron it over and then sew just that edge back down. I mean, that's the beauty of paper piecing, or by the number piecing. All right, so I'm gonna take this over. Actually, I'm gonna take it and iron it down so it's nice and flat, and then I'm gonna flip it over and sew it down, and then I'll come back and show you what the end result looks like. Okay, so I got it flipped over and then I ran my seam right back over it. I know that there is going to be a seam here. However, when you sew these pieces together, it's a 1/2 inch. So although that's only about 1/4 inch from the edge of there, it's going to get all caught into the seam. So not a big deal that it happened there. I'm glad it happened there. but that's an easy fix for you guys. So I'm just gonna give it a little iron out, and then then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut them down where that sew line was. I'm gonna cut it half an inch from that sew line out. I'm not gonna do this divoted in area. I'm gonna leave that blank when I put it on the quilting machine, and the reason why is so I have a little area if I need to test my tension. I have a space to do that right there real quick. And then so I will be ready. We're ready to quilt on these. So all I'm gonna do, like I said, is I'm gonna take them off. I'm gonna set my ruler 1/4 inch over and just cut these straight edges across the top and down the bottom to a 1/2 inch. And then I'll have to get my my machine loaded with the backing fabric. I don't know if you guys can see me, sorry. I'm gonna get my backing fabric loaded, and then I'm going to set all this up to quilt. So this should be one video, hopefully. It won't be long. I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention to how many minutes I've had on this thing, but I'm hoping it stays within that hour range. And then the next video will be the long arm quilting. So until next time, guys, plenty of hugs, loves, and blessings. Bye, guys.